Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
Doing all right over there?
Yeah. What's up? How's it going? What's up? Good?
Sound real energetic over there.
Yeah, baby.
Getting ready for Seattle? Is that why? You're like...
I'm thinking about that flight. That flight's a doozy.
Yeah, what do you got lined up?
When I'm out
movies? there? No. I'm saying on
for
the
that?
flight.
On the flight? That's a good question. I'll probably I'll either watch John Wick 4 or, be a nerd and study the Seahawks. And then everybody walks by and is like, oh, God, you can't put it down, can you, football nerd? Can you?
I mean, it is your job.
Right. And the players walk by and they're like, you don't even know what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, tell me then. And then they're like, nah, I'll just go back to my seat.
No, I'm good.
You have a nice flight, sir.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to get.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a long trip. Long trip. But don't say it. I'm watching the Seahawks, and I think we might win. Dang it. I can't believe I just said it. Oh, I just said it. And that means we're going to be down 42-0 at half. Because the last two times I've said I think we're going to win,
to be fair,
they got smoked in the first half by really bad teams.
That's right.
So, and this one is not a bad team.
Right.
Not a bad team.
And to be fair,
but not playing very well right now.
Right.
Not like for real, not playing very well. Like they should have lost that Cleveland game to PJ Walker at home 2 weeks ago. Not playing well.
Right. To be fair, though, what I was going to say was you still don't know what team you're going to get week to week.
No, that's the point. This season is I count no chickens because it doesn't even matter. And it is a very long flight to a place where a lot of teams don't win.
That's right.
Granted, and we'll do Throwback Thursday, we'll be revisiting the last time they lost in Seattle. And the point of that is positive. It's actually been a long time.
In the regular season.
In the playoffs, we've had a hard time with this team.
That's right. Yes.
This year, well, I mean, actually, it's not that out of the realm considering they're tied for their division lead that if for some reason San Francisco went the wrong direction, they could win that division. And if we were to sneak in, we might play them up there. Like that's actually, there's a path to us playing them 2 times this year.
Yep.
We'll see. That would involve San Francisco really going the wrong way for a while. And I have a hard time buying that will be the case, but they are on a 3-game losing streak. So who knows?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of them, Chase Young made what I felt was, when I read it, I was kind of, not put off. I figured he had to say something. But I was like, was it a shot at this team? And then I heard it. I went and listened to the clip because I wanted to see, because he said there's a good culture here and I'm around winners.
Yep.
And when you read it, you automatically think he's taking a shot at the other team, that there's not a good culture here and they're not winners. That's what he means by that. Or if you watch it and having, been part of every Chase Young interview session for the last 4 years, I don't think he's kind of like that. And I actually just think he was just saying something nice about his new team and didn't actually mean it about the Commanders. But I understand why it was taken that way.
Yeah.
So, of course, all the Commanders are being asked about this. So you want to start with Ron Rivera's response to it? Because, of course, I want to start this by saying, like, sometimes I take issues with questions that are asked because I feel like they're not really in the right context. In this case, because it was, you could read it any way you wanted to. I think it was worth asking our players that the number 2 overall pick who was traded prematurely before he even got to a second contract or a 5th-year extension, and you traded him, that responding to something he said, I think is worthwhile. So I don't think there's any problem with it. So here's Ron Rivera's response to what Chase Young said.
I think first and foremost is that, to me, as far as I'm concerned, I'm excited about our football team. I like the things that we're doing. I like the direction we're headed. I think culturally it's a really solid place. We're still learning and growing. We have a young quarterback that's learning and growing for us. And I do think that for the most part, things can be very bright for us if it continues to go in the right direction. And as far as, Chase is concerned in his comments, I really appreciate who he is for us and who he was for us. Did some nice things and just wish him all the luck in San Francisco.
Okay. Now, in context, the question that was asked, it started with, did you hear Chase Young? And what can you say about the culture you're building?
Yep.
So let's put in context what he was answering. And he was asked specifically about the culture, because my first initial reaction to hearing him say it was, you don't need to defend yourself.
Mm-hmm. Right. Correct.
I actually thought what he said about Chase was the right way to go about it. Mm-hmm. Good luck. We liked you here.
Yeah.
We don't think you're a bad guy. We made a business decision. I know, because of who you are, it's going to be talked about a lot, and that's fine. And I know, and all of us that cover the team closely know the reasons why they traded him. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't all just performance-based. There's a lot of injuries that had to be dealt with. And I just came around to, and I've been feeling this way for months, I didn't see a path to them signing him to a long-term deal. Could they retain him on a short-term deal if he wanted to be here? I was open to that possibility, but I didn't think he would accept that. And I also didn't feel like a franchise tag was warranted, because it would put them at a number that I think Chase is going to have a hard time getting on the open market, unless he surprises everybody and puts up massive numbers in the second half of the season for San Francisco. And then I think people will look at it differently. But if all things are this way, I don't think he's going to get a deal that Montez Sweat got. And if they were to franchise him, they'd be kind of on the hook for something like that. And what would they trade him for then? Do they think someone's going to come along with 2 first-round picks? I don't think so. So I didn't see the right, this was an unfortunate ending that had a reality attached to it that's different than Montez, which I'll get to in a moment. It's different than Montez. I know it gets lumped together when you're not following it closely, that oh my God, they just traded away both of them, and you lump it together as one story. It really isn't. It's two. Montez, as I've talked about for the last week, I think you could have convinced me either way that the right thing to do was either sign him to the type of deal that the Bears got, franchise him and keep him for one more year and then deal with it on the other end of that, or do what they did, trade him for what is really good value. It was not a bad value deal for him. And I can be convinced either way. In Chase's case, I think a trade kind of had to happen, because I don't think that there was a question of whether they were going to give him a deal like that. And I really don't think, after, knowing what we know about his knee and everything in the past and the injuries he's dealt with, I don't think there would be a massive appetite in the building to give him a lot of money, because I think it would be a risk.
Yeah.
And I without saying too much, it would be a risk to give him that kind of money.
No, for him, there are injuries.
It's just different.
There are injury concerns.
Montez doesn't have that.
Yeah, right.
He missed a few games because he had an unfortunate thing with his jaw. He broke his jaw, but he's been fine.
After that, it was.
He's been fine, available. He has minor injuries here and there, but there's no serious injury. Chase is coming off major injuries, and moving forward, the idea of giving him $100 million, I just don't think was going to happen. And I think he's going to have a hard time getting that on the open market. I mean, I hope he does, because I'm rooting for him and his family and all that stuff. But I just have a hard time believing that's going to happen. So that's what Rivera said. So let me go through what he said first. Do you feel the need to defend the culture of the team based on what he said? Mm-hmm. I guess in the framework, I suppose he did. But my position on it always was just wish him well, which is why I didn't like whoever the source was that said addition by subtraction. I didn't like that. I'm don't do that. Yep. He's not a bad guy. He wasn't a bad teammate. There's better than anybody, whoever said this, that there were complications about him over the 3.5 years he was here that were out of everybody's control, namely injuries. So just wish him well to move on. Hopefully he has a nice long career wherever that may be. It just wasn't going to be here, and you don't need to defend anything. Secondarily, what Chase said to me did not come off as a massive point. Now, maybe he meant it that way, but it didn't come off when I heard it as a pointed criticism. I think he was just saying, I'm in a place that's won a lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't really, that's true. And this team hasn't. So, you can make the comparison all you want, but, the proof's in they've won a lot and you haven't. So,
Right. And this is what I was starting to say yesterday. Whether you want to twist Chase's comments and do a shot at this team or not, take the quote, listen to the quote. He is not wrong. Everything he said, he was not wrong.
Right.
That is a team that has gone to multiple Super Bowls over the last 10, 15 years, had multiple rebuilds, and still has a winning culture.
We're almost in the Super Bowl last year, and if it wasn't for all the injuries to the quarterbacks, might have been. You don't know.
Correct.
Right. You don't know that game got derailed because they lost all their quarterbacks. You don't know what would have happened.
They are a perennial contender, and we talk about it all the time on the show, how if you're not talking about Shanahan and Lynch as being the blueprint of how you win in the NFL now, what are you even doing? So he's not wrong in what he said. And also, pair it with here. This is not a shot at Josh Harris and the new owners, but
No.
there isn't a winning culture here anymore. There hasn't been
because they haven't won.
Right, for 10, 15 years, especially because of what was going on off the field, too. We don't have to go through all the issues. We're past that, but we
all know it. We live it.
He's not wrong on what he was saying. It is, in fact, a winning type culture. This one, still working on it.
Still
and that's
working
fine.
on it.
We know where we're at.
Still working on it. Now, I guess because of the way it was framed.
We're working on ourselves, baby. Don't worry about it. Like,
Now,
it's okay.
When he does, and this is why I didn't want him to defend it, because the way he qualified defending it was, we're learning and growing. It's year 4.
Yeah, that's
why this is the box I don't want him to get into, because at year 4, you don't want to hear that anymore.
Correct. Yeah. Don't tell me you're the youngest team or a young team and you're middle of the pack.
Middle of the pack. Like, actually, the young team that they're playing is the one this weekend.
That's right.
That team has 14 rookies on it of their 53-man roster, and I think it's 12 now that are on their roster right now.
Yeah.
They're the young team that is trying to learn and grow. And by the way, they have a better record than you right now.
That's right.
So this is why I'm like, I want him to not defend himself so much, even if the urge is there, because probably circumstance, he probably feels the necessity to do it because he is trying to make a case to the new owners that, oh, by the way, don't just assume that you'd be better off in another direction. I'm trying to paint the vision to you. In year 4, though, it's hard to still paint it. Right. In my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, because I'd like to think that we're a little bit closer to being there. And then he always turns back to Hal, which was a really interesting, it was an interesting bet to make going into the season, because if he is really average, and most 5th round picks are, but if he was, then he'd have no argument.
Right.
But because Hal, by the middle of this season, is getting gushing things said about him because he has played really well in a new offense, et cetera, then he can go back and lean on this and say, see, you're looking at the wrong thing. You need to look at the right thing. And the right thing is we put a bet on the most important, like, no offense, Chase Young or Montez Sweat. There's no defensive end that turns you into where you want to be.
Right.
It's a quarterback that does it, and we think we finally have one. Please focus your attention there, and we're learning and growing around him. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting PR move that only works if Hal is really good, and so far he has been really good.
Right.
Really good.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so then they went into the locker room, and they asked a bunch of the players, and so far, most of the players have said all the right things, which is what I really like about this, because it'd be so easy for them to be like, this guy, whatever they want to say, or say however they feel about him. And this will go back to my point of earlier, like when they said the addition by subtraction thing, I'm like, I wish nobody said that, because I'm there every day. Like, did he fulfill what everyone hoped he would? No. Right? Was he a bad guy? No. Right. No. Like in any locker room were there cliques, and was he best friends with everybody? No. But that's every locker room everywhere. Like, he ended up not being, and this goes back to a couple of years ago when I was like outwardly, publicly saying, stop working out on your own constantly. We want you here because we want you to be a leader on the team. And I don't think he ever filled that role because of who he is, because of his fame, because of his talent, and because I think everybody looked at him as, you're the person who's going to turn the team around. I think there was a responsibility attached to that. And Rivera tried, not so subtly, to put that message out there 2 years ago. Like, he was like, before pre-injury, he was like, we really want you here with us. It matters. I get, you don't have to, and I get you want to work out with these guys and all this stuff, and you don't have to be here by the CBA, but in a sign of you are a leader of this team, we really would like you here. And he never really bought into all of that.
That's right.
So, like, this is complicated. Like, he can say these things, like, this is this culture, that culture. But if they re-signed him for next year, my gut says he wouldn't be there in the offseason either, which means he's not taking part in all the things that attach yourself as, follow me, I'm the leader, we should be here.
Right.
And so this is complicated. I still, I don't know what Rivera should do. He's put in a box. He has to sell himself. He's got, what do we got? 8 games left? 8 games left. A playoff berth will make things very interesting.
Sure.
Right? even in a down NFC, if they sneak in, it would make things very interesting for the new ownership group to make a decision on it. If they don't, it's going to be a very interesting decision. Yeah. If it spirals, I don't think it will be. If it's close again, like it has been, like they're streaking towards 8-9 again, like they're streaking towards it. If that happens, I don't know. It probably, then the selling point will be how.
Yeah, right.
And we'll have to see how the Harris group feels about that.
Correct.
He is under contract for another year.
Right.
So they'd have to walk away from him to do that. And I've said this all along, and nobody wants to hear it because everyone just thinks it's been assumed that he's going to get replaced. I don't know that, and I haven't heard that. I would hint more if I thought that was the case. I think they literally are going to let him play it out. I do think they exerted some pressure on the deals that were made during the trade deadline, but I don't think that was to be taken as the sign that things are definitively going to change. And I think they're going to let this play out. That's what I think is going to happen, which is why I'm like, he's in an interesting box. Because when you defend it by saying we're learning and growing, it falls flat when you're in year 4, when there's other coaches like Dan Campbell or Nick Sirianni, and maybe they had better rosters or wherever you want to think, that showed up in places, and in year 2, it flipped around, and now they're like gunning for the type of things that Rivera's talked about.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say, though, I think Harrison...
Or McDaniel, for that matter. There's 3 of them.
Sure. I would say, though, when it comes to Ron sticking around past this year, I think Josh and the ownership group know something has to be shaken up, period. And with what you're saying, I thought he was done after the Bears game, but you and I both know if he makes the playoffs and wins a playoff game or makes it really interesting against the Eagles or something, if they sneak in and they're playing the 2 seed.
And Hal looks good.
Right. I could see a pathway for him to be back, right? But I think
if they have a top 5 passer with an upper tier offense with the offensive line that they've had, you got to think long and hard about it. Am I going to shake that thing up?
Right.
Now,
the difference here, though, is Bieniemy's under a 1-year contract, so you have to figure that out, okay? Yes. 2, though, I think everybody kind of knows this. You need to have some kind of new plan at personnel, which means...
That's an interesting question. And I think the first move was to bring in the analytics guy.
Right,
who
exactly.
They admitted...
helped on the trades.
And this guy, Eugene Shen, will tell you, and I think his past, because I've looked into this guy a lot, he provides the analytics of value, but he doesn't, and he will openly tell you this. I don't watch the tape.
Yeah.
I don't tell you who to pick. But I will tell you situationally things to do analytically. He was a big part of that high second-round pick is a good pick for Montez Sweat. So therefore, which is why I think even right after they said the deal was too good.
Yep.
Once they knew they were trading Chase, even though it happened technically after the Montez trade, I think and I knew this going in, if they were going to trade Chase, which I knew they wanted to do, there was 50-50 on whether they were going to move Sweat or not. They had to make a decision, are we going to pay him? And once they got this offer, they felt like the right thing to do was to move on. They got a pick that's going to be very close to what they used to get him in the first place, and they're not going to pay him $100 million. And he, frankly, has not performed to the level of a top 5 defensive end. But the hard part is we all know he's good. He's not bad. It's not a clear-cut answer. He's just, I think we've seen the ceiling for him. He's going to be a very good player, but not a great one. Yeah. And you got to pay him like a great one now, and you've already paid 2 of the defensive linemen. So they ran into we knew this all along when they drafted 4 in a row like that. You're never going to pay all of them. Right. Even if they're all good, you're never going to pay all of them.
Right, exactly.
All right, on Sweat, I want to play Mike Lombardi, who was a guest on this show not that long ago. He likes ripping Ron. So I don't know particularly why, but he likes probably something in the past that whatever. Anyway, everybody's got an axe to grind in this league. So he does a lot of stuff for VSiN and all this stuff. And he did a thing because he's former GM, he talked about the Sweat deal as it was. And this is what he said about it.
You just paid this guy slightly less than Myles Garrett. He's got 35 sacks in 5 years. He's never had double-digit sacks, okay? This guy just got Myles Garrett number. Now, if you factor in what would you have paid him in free agency, you would have paid him this. You could have had him this contract. People are sending me, oh, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. You're the idiot. Like, you could have gotten this contract in the free market. Like, who's paying him this? This is more than 25% of what Highsmith got. This is significantly more. Like, you overpaid this guy. He hasn't had double-digit sacks. He hasn't done anything that resembles the players that you're putting him in the category. So you're giving me, tell me that this is not a good deal. You can do it, but remember this. The fans only see the player, but they'll bitch about the cap room later.
Now, that team has a ton of cap room.
Sure.
They also have a ton of draft picks to throw around because they traded out of the number 1 pick.
Sure.
So they've got the room to take shots on stuff like this. But this is the third cycle that they've done things that are unusual. They went and got Chase Claypool. That made no sense.
Right.
At the same time, when they had a bad record and they're just acquiring people, and granted, they didn't extend them or anything like that, but they did it, and everybody was going, what are you doing when you did that? Then they got to the offseason because they traded Roquan Smith. They wouldn't pay him. They wouldn't pay their own guy, and then paid more for a guy on the open market, Tremaine Edmonds.
That's right.
And they brought him in.
Yep.
Their defense is no better this year than it was a year ago. They're balking at paying Jalen Johnson, right?
Yep.
Put him up to trade because apparently they offered him a Kurt deal, right? He wouldn't take it, right? And then they go and acquire Montez Sweat for a very high pick. And then because they're leveraged, they have to give him, though I said it the second they got him, I go, there's no way he's getting to free agency. They have to give him the money now, or they look really dumb for trading this for a guy for half a year on a 2-6 team. Even if he's really good, he can't change what their outcome's going to be.
That's right. Yep.
We're rooting for Carolina tonight all of a sudden because we want that pick to be higher.
Oh, of course.
Is really strange.
Yeah, duh. Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to Sweat, he's right, too. You and I talk about this all the time.
He's a good player, but he's not a great player.
But I just mean the deal, though.
Yeah.
You and I talk about this all the time. In today's modern NFL, the trade for a rental player, the guy who has 1 year left on his contract, and the extension is like the two no-nos you don't do in the league.
Correct.
Giving up
if you're a bad team, yes.
Correct.
If you're a good team, had the Niners got Montez Sweat,
but you're going
Chase
for
Young,
it.
You're just going for it.
Yeah.
You're paying
No.
a premium to go for it.
Which is fine.
Right.
That's different. But this is a bad team that gave up what we've said is going to be a top 40 pick, where you could have just taken the best edge rusher or used that pick to move up and get whoever the best edge rusher
and
is
pay
going
a
to be.
fraction of it.
Yes, correct.
And like the other problem that this comes down to is the players in the room don't like this.
Yes,
The
right.
guys who are young, and like Jalen Johnson, who even said right after the deal was done, I better get my deal first. Because now you don't value us, you value other people's players.
That's right.
Dan ran into this early. It's funny, Antonio Pierce, the head coach of the Raiders.
Yep.
He didn't value Antonio Pierce. Let him walk, and then they spent a ton of money on Jeremiah Trotter, and they got a worse player than the guy that they had in the room. This is a guy, you don't do this. You don't go out of your way in the middle of a season to pay somebody on a bad team when everybody else is going, wait a minute.
That's right.
So, and again, like I will say this to Bears fans, like you got a good guy. You got a good player. He's very professional. He is a really good player. He's just not going to be Myles Garrett. To Mike Lombardi's point, we've known this for a while. Like this was the year that Rivera and Del Rio told him out front, go be that guy.
Yes.
And it's not his fault. I don't know that he's capable of being that guy. There are very few that are TJ Watt or Max Crosby or Myles Garrett. They're just not that guy. He's a really good player. He reminds me of Preston Smith.
Yes,
Preston Smith,
that's what I was going to say.
Who's had a really great long career.
But was a second-round pick.
Was a second-round pick.
So that was the ceiling.
Ended up, he has some good games here and there. He's a consistent player. He plays a lot. He will make some plays, but he doesn't blow games up.
That's right. Yep, exactly.
And now they just paid him like he's Max Crosby.
Right, exactly.
Oh. Well, this was the argument for. This is why these two things aren't the same. The Montez Sweat one, I could hear either way. He is our guy. Do you pay your guy? Do you keep him? You have cap room, actually.
Right.
The Commanders have a lot of cap room heading into the next year, but you would be committing a ton of resources to one position group. Albeit, I will hear out the decision to pay Payne, I think, was off of his performance because they reward people who play well here. But at that point, it put them in the spot where they went, well, you're going to have two high-paid defensive tackles. Can you have a high-paid defensive end now? Would it have been better served to have one high-paid defensive tackle, one high-paid defensive end, and then move on? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But Payne earned the contract, and had he not gotten it, it would have been a signal to everybody else. If you play your you-know-what off, we may not pay you anyway. I think Rivera did the right thing. He said, go play your you-know-what off, and we'll pay you. And he did.
Yeah, no,
They've said the same thing to Sweat. Go be, this crazy great defensive end that we can't let go of, and we'll give you the money. And that's just never materialized. He's a very good player, not a great one.
And with both Allen and Payne on their walk years, they were both dynamic. Like,
Payne was ridiculous last year.
Yeah. Allen, though, remember Allen was,
I cannot overemphasize. 11 and a half sacks for a defensive tackle is Aaron Donald numbers. They're ridiculous numbers.
And I remember with Allen was literally throwing guys, that year. And so I didn't see a fraction of that with Sweat this year. Like I actually think he was.
The first couple of weeks, he was very active.
He was.
And I remember even saying on the broadcasting, he wants his money.
Yes.
I was like, he is motivated.
Wasn't sustainable, and you can't pay them all. And so they were never going to do that. To the Bears thing, though, I feel like the Bears are listening to too much of the outside noise because we had Courtney Cronin on and we had the right
Biggs.
And both of them were like, have you seen who they're rushing the passer with? Like, they both pretty much stopped short of saying if there's nobody. And so I get it. They were desperate to get somebody, but not like this. This is just not what you do to shore that up.
I would argue for them. Go get Chase Young for a lower pick. Okay,
that's right.
Play it out
and see how it goes. Yeah,
see how it goes.
Yep.
And you're not committed to him yet.
Right.
I mean, he probably wanted to go to the Bears because he would have got that contract. From them.
Correct. Yeah, 100%.
Right.
But what I'm getting at here
and
is,
I actually think if they gave the same deal for Chase Young, I don't think we would have traded Montez Sweat. I think we would have played it out and then figured it out. Tag him. Get a deal we feel is commensurate, and I think we would have figured it out. Yeah. As they put it, the deal was too good, and that's the reality. Yeah, and the second he got that pick, they're like, now the Bears have to give him this contract. They have no choice. That's Otherwise, they look idiotic. You can't be 2-6, acquire someone like that for an asset like this, and not pay the guy. You're renting him for what then?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I can't wait for the next segment because it's about boundary stone. And Callow is so wrong. I love it when I'm right.
Yeah, I know.
And we'll do that next. Bram Weinstein Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Here's the first selection of 1998, which is Throwback Thursday, because that is the last time that the Commanders, then Redskins, went to Seattle in the regular season and lost. They're actually, and this is odd because of the trip, they're 7-1 all time in the regular season in Seattle, including a win a few years back when they won up there. But in the playoffs, it's been actually a very different story. They've played them 3 times, and they lost all 3 of them. Very famously here, the RG3 game where he went in, should not have gone in, and
Worst
lost.
Game I've ever been to.
Yep, yeah. And then 2 other times in a short period of time for the Legion of Boom teams. Actually, there wasn't the Legion. No. It was the Matt Hasselbeck.
The Legion of Boom one was 2012.
One of them.
The beginning.
Yes.
The beginning.
The beginning one was Matt Hasselbeck, Sean Alexander. Yep. They went to a Super Bowl one of those years early and lost to Pittsburgh. I remember this because I was in the Olympics in Turin, Italy, and watched the Super Bowl at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and it was the Seattle-Pittsburgh Super Bowl. Right. And so we've lost 3 times to them in the Super Bowl since the turn of the century in the playoffs. But in the regular season, we've had the magic sauce with these guys. And 1998 is the one and only time, and of course the last time, that they actually lost up there. So I'm looking at this as a positive viewpoint that this trip typically is, for everybody, very hard to make, especially from the East Coast, but we've figured out a way through the years, albeit not that many times, to win. And if you're wondering why have we played them so few times, they used to be in the AFC. So you would only play them every 4 years or every 8 years, and that's why there's been so many few trips actually up to Seattle.
The last time they were there was the game both I referenced and Keim referenced when the Commanders played the Giants earlier this year, because that was the game where they had so many hurt linemen, they had signed guys off the street to play in that game.
Oh, that's right.
And they won.
Yes, that's right.
Like that was, and that's
the Doc. I've never seen this guy
I will never
before.
forget it because I was producing the Redskins at the time, and I remember Doc saying in cue to, at the time, Larry, Sonny, and Cooley going, "Guys, someone just walked by me in a jersey full uniform, and I don't know who they are."
Yeah.
I mean, that was like, oh God, what's happening? And I believe it was like a combination of Roy Halu and Evan Royster both scored touchdowns to somehow win that game. So, yeah.
So here we go this weekend. I'll talk a lot more about it tomorrow, but I've been watching a lot of Seattle the last couple of nights, and they're not playing particularly well, especially on offense. Like last week, DK Metcalf was barely targeted, which was odd considering they were down. Geno Smith in rhythm is outstanding, but in a quick game and extended plays has been apt to make a lot of mistakes. He's got 6 interceptions over the last 4 games. And their offensive line has been beat pretty badly the last couple of weeks. And Cleveland, frankly, and I'll talk a lot more about it tomorrow, should have won up there a couple of weeks ago and had a preposterous interception at the end of the game that allowed Seattle an opportunity to score late. They blew a 14-point lead at home to Cleveland, and P.J. Walker, remember, that wasn't even Deshaun, that was P.J. Walker.
That's right.
They ran the ball down that team's throat, which I'm going to say this now, and I'll say it again tomorrow, and it's not going to happen. We should run the ball on them. But, like,
no, Sam Howell's got 40 attempts again.
I already know I'm screaming into the wind. I know. They're going to throw the ball 45 times to Devin Witherspoon, Reek Woolen, Jamal Adams, and Quandre Diggs, as opposed to, I think we have an advantage up front with these guys. If you watch the last couple of games, especially the Ravens, who are very good at running the ball and have a quarterback who can really run the ball if he has to. But if you watch the Browns, they ran it down their throat a couple weeks ago. So I'm hoping we get a little, dose of B-Rob and a little dose of Gibson off of the game that he had a week ago. Best game he had all year. But, I don't believe that'll happen.
Doesn't matter.
What's the point of saying that?
It doesn't matter. They're going to pass.
EB does what EB does. He doesn't care what I think or anybody thinks about it. He's like, shut your face.
That's right.
My quarterback's number 2 in the NFL. Remember that part?
He's like, did we lose last week?
Yeah.
No,
we lose?
We're going to keep passing.
Then we're just going to keep doing that.
Well, and here's the other thing. How are you going to hide Howell now because of the coming out party this week? So
that's also what I didn't like about this. I did not like that. I don't like the momentum of this. It's how this goes.
The best.
It's sports.
He's the best quarterback ever.
It's sports. Here it comes. Oh God! Here it comes.
The NFL Instagram account is posting about it.
I know.
He's number 2.
It's terrible. It's terrible. I'm like,
he's
guys,
3 interceptions now.
I'm like, stop talking about us. Remember, every time you lose to us, you guys want to fire people. Let's go back to that one. I don't like this. Sam Howell, CBS has a piece, not kidding, up on their website right now, calling him the best low-round draft pick quarterback since Tom Brady.
Oh,
so not kidding.
God,
not kidding. And then if you read it though, you won't see many candidates to beat him,
right?
Unless you want to take Purdy, which I think probably someone wrote earlier this year, because at one point he was 10-0 in all of his starts, and his completion percentage was tremendous.
It was worth mentioning, absolutely.
Of course.
Now though,
not anymore.
Shine. I'd say
that's what I'm saying here.
Shine is in jeopardy for Purdy. I would say it's not gone.
Right, slow down. Yeah, they're
still a young quarterback.
Yeah, you're yelling, put Kirk on the plane and take him home with you.
Right. Yes.
All right.
Exactly.
All right. So my favorite part of the day will be right now, which is for some reason
I had taken a knee and killed too much time for you to get to this.
No. So yesterday, or the last week or so,
we've had this argument once a week for the last 3 weeks, I think.
Because the Wizards put out, and they're wearing it tomorrow, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Tomorrow night, they pull out for the first time their new alternate jersey, which is based around the boundary stones, which when I saw the jerseys initially, my line was, this looks like something out of a Renaissance fair and doesn't look like the Wizards whatsoever.
Sure.
Because the color scheme is kind of that like Statue of Liberty green.
They look like the New York Liberty. I'd fully admit that. Yes.
Yeah, it used to be bronze, but now it's green thanks to the weather, and it's the rust color, that bluish green color, and it's got some other things, and it's got some like old English font on it.
Looks like the Washington Post font. Yeah.
Right. It's straight out of Renaissance Fair. And I'm like, this isn't the Wizards. So I'm Team Kuzma, where I'm like, I think we need to have our teams look like our teams. Why are we messing with the brand like this? But the Wizards did what they did, and they put this out there, and they're going to have a crazy court tomorrow night like everybody else. And so here's where we are. And then when I saw them, I didn't know why they came up with this. And then they had a very long, detailed explanation of it, of which I was like, okay, at least some thought went into this.
Sure.
And the connection is something called the boundary stones, which I guess exist in this area, but someone who grew up here, went to the public school system all the way through, went to college here, had never heard of, ever. I'd never heard of this, and you'd think I would know it. I've never heard of this. And Callow screaming at me that I'm stupid, and how could I not know this? And my argument was, I know so many inane facts about everything. It's amazing I've never heard of this thing. And I'm like, this is a reach. If they did a jersey based on mumbo sauce, it would have made more sense to me than this. If they did a jersey based on the swamp, it would make more sense than this. I've never heard of this. And now I know, because they did it. I'm now looking up what is the history of the boundary stones. And apparently they are these stones that notated the border of Washington, D.C.
The original one. So in Virginia, there's still a whole entire line of them before they took the land back, because it was like, here's your sliver. And it was like, what does this do for anybody?
I'm not suggesting this isn't a cool story. It's just, it's gotten no play. And I've never heard of it. So much so that it's just some part of history that no one pays any attention to. Callow thinks we're all dumb idiots who live here that we don't know what this is.
I'm just better than you.
So
It's
I
fine.
demanded you put out a poll and ask people, be honest. Have you ever heard of this before they put their jerseys out? And what were the results?
There's still 2 hours to go. If anyone wants to vote, it's on my Twitter account at Mike_Callow. We currently sit with 71 votes in a very even 25% yes, 75% no. They had never heard of them before the Wizards actually released it.
Thank you. Thank you, 50 of the 70 people that were being completely honest. And because you could do it anonymously, you're now not dumb for just stating the truth. I've never heard of this. This was never taught to me. I've never even heard of these things until this. Callow's sending me pictures of one he walked by the other day.
No,
it's ridiculous.
I pass by them every day, not just the other day. They're right here in Friendship Heights.
That means I've passed by them a million times and don't know what they are.
I had 2 responses on the tweet, by the way. One of them don't like the colors, but I didn't know about the boundary stones until we got the info on it. But then someone also replied, yes, I knew about them from the fine teachers in the MoCo public school system.
No. I also had fine teachers in the MoCo public school system, and they didn't not at Springbrook, not at White Oak, and not at Cannon Road. Nobody ever brought this up, ever.
I'm saying at least one teacher did.
One teacher did.
At least one.
He probably runs that rudimentary website.
He or she.
That's part of the radio party that somehow got this on the radar of the Wizards PR team.
Okay. You're right. The data says you're right. Now, I will say this now, though. I actually think you should give the Wizards a little more credit now because now everybody knows about them. And you don't have to think they're cool or whatever.
They didn't go into it with that intention, though. They thought this was a you-know-what-this-is situation, and I think we're finding out that nobody knows what this is, but I will agree with you. It's an interesting story that I didn't know about my hometown, and now I do because of them, but I don't think that's what their intention was.
No, not at all. I think they got this idea maybe from somebody that knew what the boundary stones were, but 2, I think they looked at it and said, this is something that's, as I keep saying, they are the oldest standing quote-unquote monuments in the country. They were the first things laid down.
Which is amazing that nobody knows what these are.
And so what I think happened is they must have found out what they were, realized nobody did anything around it, and said, roll with it. And said to Nike, here's what you need to make it look like. You pick out the colors because there's no way someone from here picked those colors out. Yeah. And I think they must have just said, let's do something completely unique. Let's go for it. I'm with you. They didn't. Trust me. I love a lot of the folks over at Monumental. Not a single one of them were trying to bring awareness about the boundary stones. Not a single one of them.
They were looking for something. Like, had they done a punk rock jersey, and, I think a lot of people would know that there's a big history of punk rock in this town, and that would be a reach, but it'd be a city connected. I think people at least know what that is.
Correct. I would agree.
This one's out from left field.
I would agree. No. I would 100% agree. And I think either way, the positive I look at it is if you now don't know what those are and you do see the random stones on the literal border now, you know exactly what they are.
Maybe. So. It also would include people paying attention to the Wizards because that's step one to having to know this. They did win last night.
They did play.
They did win last night. They played a team that's on their level, and they defeated them. And they're going to play them again tomorrow.
And we know what happens
on a court where I have to get those old 3D glasses to turn on my TV to watch because it's going to hurt my eyeballs.
That's right. Exactly.
And that's not their fault. That's the league's fault for doing these ridiculous courts in an in-season tournament that nobody understands and nobody gets.
What I actually don't understand the most about the courts is all of the courts are built for the tournament, not for the uniform. Like last year, they had a cherry blossom court for the cherry blossom jerseys. Mm-hmm. This is the tournament court, but then it's in those colors, and it's bad. Like, they're all bad.
They're all bad.
All across the league.
The one when they played the Heat a week ago, and I'm like, what is that? It was this blinding red.
Yes, the trophy stretches from one end to the other with this giant streak. I would have rather, why don't you just let everyone make their own courts? I think that would have just worked. So, anyways.
I was asking you before the show, the Caps have never done anything with cherry blossoms because the Wizards have and the Nationals have.
Right.
I actually think they'd have some cool opportunities if they leaned into that a little bit. Like a Capitol Dome at center ice with cherry blossoms around it in the spring would be very cool. Pink crease, guys. Pink gold crease, guys.
Once again, I love the people over there. I have so many ideas for that team that have just been they have lacked originality through the Ovechkin era. Like, we should have been tearing through some alternates 10 years ago. because of the star power that he has. The other one with them is they kind of just need a new look in general. Like their current look is just stale. The Caps.
You think?
Their current Capitals logo has run its course. They need a new one.
I agree. I've always loved their older original look more. Yeah. And considering next year's the 50th anniversary of the team.
That's right. Yes. Exactly.
Rolling those out again would be pretty cool.
I would hope bare minimum they've got the white and the red version of that coming around. I would hope I would hope also, like, you know how this is. I would hope you wear white at home a few times. That was one old school thing that I loved about the NHL.
Yes.
Like, I used to do it too. But
their best look to me always was the white jersey with the blue pants and the stars and stripes.
Yeah.
The old uniform where Capitals was really spelled out longer.
Yep.
That's their best look.
And
every time the Ovechkin era, when they pulled those out, I'm like, go back to that, man. Like, that's the best.
So they've done a good job actually through the Ovechkin era. They kind of cycle through them. Like one year, Yes, because Alex is special and we're going to sell so many different sweaters. One year they wore the white ones. Yeah. Then they cycled them out for a few years. Then they wore the red ones, and they cycled them out for a few years. I'm going to guess next year, bare minimum, you're going to get one version or the other. I think you have to.
Oh.
You have to.
I think their first home game should be in the original look.
You would think.
Yeah. You'd think. I'm trying to get ahead of this, guys. It's the 50th anniversary next year. Let's just not let that just go by.
I don't think they will.
Who knows?
Yeah, I mean.
All right, we'll talk about their game last night, which they lost in overtime next. Bram Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. 1998, Throwback Thursday. It is the one and only time that the Washington Redskins football team Commanders went to Seattle and lost there in the regular season. They're 7-1 all time, so that's the one and only time. So I don't mean to point it out as a negative. I point it out as a positive.
Right.
They haven't lost there in 25 years, and it's been a rarity. The all-time rarity, 7-1 in the regular season there. So maybe they can get a win and get back to 500.
One of those wonky stats that shouldn't exist.
A weird one. There was one with the Lions for years where they had beaten them like 31 straight times or something like that, and it took until sometime in the 2000s when they actually lost the game to them.
2007, 2006.
They finally lost the game to them.
Your boy went to a Halloween party the night before and had to watch that game with the worst hangover of his life. And
I think
they lost to the Lions. And it was just like, what?
Yeah.
What's happening?
There's the other one, too, that forever the outcome of the Redskins game determined the week before the election determined which party would win. Like if I can't remember which way it was. If the Redskins won, this party won. If they lost, it was the other one. And I think it ended in 2016. I'm pretty sure it was one of them.
I think it was
one of the recent ones.
I want to say it was 2012. I want to say it was 2012. Yeah.
So we'll see next year, guys. Which old man do you got? So let's see.
Sad.
Yeah, sad. Capitals lose last night 4-3 to the Panthers in overtime.
Yep.
They trailed 2-1 after one. They scored 2 in the second, led going into the third, gave up a goal. I watched the third period. It was blitzkrieg, and it did not look like it was going to go very well, but they limped to overtime and then limped out of there real fast after they gave up a goal in like blink of an eye because of a mistake. And you played a bite for me from Spencer Carberry. You don't hear coaches do this very often. He just flatly blamed Yevgeny Kuznetsov for the mistake.
Yeah, I mean, well, he explained it too. He was like, they asked him, "What'd you see on the overtime goal?" And he said Kuznetsov out of position. He went to chase him and he lost the race, and that's what happens. So I appreciated Carberry for doing that. Carberry does that at practice. I haven't seen him do it in a game situation that often, but when you have a gaffe like that costs you a point, call the player out. As far as the actual game went, the Caps actually played really well, had a good first period. The most unfortunate thing about last night was Anthony Mantha had 2 goals, then had a puck to the head that got deflected. Yeah. He left the game. Yeah. So he's a streaky goal scorer. So it was like, oh man, maybe they're going to get him going. I don't know how long he's going to be out. There was no health update today. So that was kind of unfortunate that you have a player that you're kind of relying on to either get hot or move him, and he ended up getting hurt within the game anyways. What I did say yesterday, I was spot on, though. Connor McMichael stepped up in a huge way.
That's my guy.
He scored a shorthanded goal, the first one of his career. So when the Panthers were on the doorstep in the second period, he flips around and flips the script. Then a couple minutes later, he had an amazing pass to Mantha that Mantha scored on. McMichael is starting to really come into his own, and he's honestly the brightest spot of the season so far. I mean, the fact that they're getting this out of a first-round pick from a little while ago, and from what we had seen last year under our boy Petey Loves, that he didn't look comfortable, and the little bit of ice time he got was not great. The fact that he has basically turned it around and really turned himself into a top 6 forward is the best storyline in the first, 11 games of the season.
I did find it interesting too, though, that when you mentioned the Kuznetsov thing, he played more shifts than anybody else last night, and he played more minutes than anybody else last night.
He's still on the power play, so he gets more time that way. And look,
I mean, of all, like, if you're going to call the guy out, well, he is playing more than anybody else.
Top line center too. So I mean,
okay.
So he's going to, like, they don't have Backstrom anymore, so somebody has to eat those minutes. So
all right,
Kuznetsov is getting more ice time.
All right, so they finished their homestand.
Yep.
They missed maximum points by 3 in all of it,
yes.
right? They had 1 loss and 1 loss in overtime,
yep.
right? That's not terrible.
No, it's fine. They're coming into their own right now. Like, I'm much more off of the ledge than we were in the first 5 games of the season. They are starting.
That looked really bad. The first few games looked like they weren't trying very hard.
Right.
That looked really bad.
Yeah. No, I would say they're slowly but surely coming into their own within the system. But the number one storyline now is Ovechkin. Ovechkin's not scoring. He's actually, I think the worst part is he's a non-factor at the moment, and I don't know if that's the stuff that's went through with Backstrom. Is he feeling that mentally or what? But we've all seen this guy for how many years get out of a slump and he'll score 10 goals in 6 games.
It'll probably happen.
We're kind of just waiting for that first one to give, and then all of a sudden I think the floodgates will open. But until he does that, I have to mention it, that he's just a non-factor at the moment. And, he gets the benefit of the doubt.
How do you say in Russian, I need nap? Very tired.
Don't think that's the case.
Oh, all right.
Don't think so.
All right, we'll be right back. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. This song's terrible. It's from 1998. I think it's either written by a 3-year-old or there's TikTok artists that are jealous because this predates anything they've ever done. And every time my kids play me some TikTok artist, I'm like, it's this. It's this. Terrible song. Just terrible. Who is this?
It's The Offspring.
The Offspring.
This
doesn't age well. It's
definitely still
song.
Play this at Caps games.
I'm sure they do. It's terrible.
It's definitely
it
a
came
arena
out
rock.
In 1998, which we're doing for Throwback Thursday because it's the one and only time in 8 meetings that Washington actually lost in Seattle to the Seahawks in the regular season. The playoffs had a couple of losses up there since the turn of the century, but in the regular season, it has not happened very often. And, for Ron and company, this would be a good one to get if they want to keep the season going towards a potential sneak into the playoff run.
Something tells me, because that was a huge hit in 98. That was probably big in Seattle at the time. That was off the grunge era, the next era of rock, kind of. So
it was like a popped version of grunge, though.
Yeah.
They're like, you're not Kurt Cobain, sir.
A lot of white guys in Seattle.
A lot of white
saying,
guys.
I'm pretty fly for a white guy.
We'll see a lot of white guys this
Got your
weekend.
flannel all packed?
I can't wait. Puget Sound, hon.
They don't sound like that there either.
Okay. Let's see. This is for you. DM'd from listener Scott.
Okay.
Oakton High School class of 88.
All right.
Never heard of it.
God.
Ever. Boundary Stones. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for sticking up for me. Typically, he needles me about the Commanders. But today, he's sticking up for me because he knows I'm right. And everybody who's being honest is just being honest. None of us have ever heard of that before.
Well, Scott graduated high school before I was born, and I knew about him. So I don't know what to say to that.
So he's 3 years older than me, Scott. I graduated in 1991.
There you go.
Pretty fly for a white guy, Scott. Oh, man. I knew this would happen yesterday, which is why I brought it up. There are people that are going to glom onto what I think is the best conspiracy theory in sports going right now, which circulated first on the Le Batard show, which was one of his co-hosts basically said, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, did he ever actually rupture his Achilles tendon? Because you know what? That would be a medical marvel. And considering that he's someone who doesn't believe in modern medicine whatsoever and is happy to espouse all his thoughts wherever he gets the opportunity to do so, and actually gets paid a lot of money to do that.
Right.
Well, touche, buddy, because that means we can do it back to you, which I described as from Le Batard. This is third-level trolling because he not only is just putting it out there, he's putting it out there against a guy who has gone after modern medicine over and over and over and over.
For sure, yes.
Oh, it's amazing. So, of course, Cowherd today sees this, knows it's a good idea, and goes, I don't know about medicine. I don't know about vaccines. I don't know about this. I don't know about that. I just read this. I don't know. And he's like he's doing I'm just asking questions.
I'm just asking questions. Yeah, right.
I'm just asking questions. If no one else in the history of this injury has ever come back from this to play at high-level sports, in this short a period of time, then maybe it just didn't happen the way he described it happening. It's a fair question.
What happened then?
What doctor fixed this when no other doctor could? What, you think they couldn't have done this before with the 8 million other people that have gotten their Achilles tendons torn?
Right.
Of course they would bring them back faster if they could. The whole time after it happened, he's like, I'm coming back. I'm like, no, you're not.
Right.
It takes a year to get over that. Like, no, not to, maybe to walk and run around and kind of be normal, but if you're a normal person, not the quarterback of the Jets.
That's right. Exactly.
Not the point guard of the Lakers. That's not happening. Look at Kevin Durant. It took him like 2 years to get over that.
That's right. Yep. Exactly.
Nah. I love it. I love it.
But then what happened?
I love it. Partially torn.
But isn't a partial tear just a completely set of different rehab? You're still out for
a long period of
time. A long time, not 5 months or whatever he's looking to be.
I'd like to think that this is all we're just going to keep, months. I think we're just going to say it. Just say it, say it, say it. Try to keep everybody engaged. Try to keep the team from thinking the season's over. Just stay competitive. And, and if that's what's happening, I'm all for that. But he keeps doubling down on, I think he said the other day he was caught. Oh, it was on McAfee.
The camera on the post game where a player said, when you coming back? And he said, give it a few weeks or give me a few weeks.
And then he went on McAfee and said a fortnight, which is like 6 weeks. So that would be like right before we played them.
2 weeks?
I don't know.
I thought
that's fake news too. I don't know.
You've never heard of that though.
I've heard of it. I don't know what it means. That's different. Okay. If you said boundary stone and I said I've never heard of it, I at least know what that means.
2 weeks is a fortnight.
Okay, so I think he said a few fortnights. That's what it is. So then people went 6 weeks and then looked at the calendar and went Christmas Eve Commanders versus Jets.
Oh, jeez.
But they'd have to be in line to make the playoffs for it to even be worthwhile to take the risk, even if it's possible, which I will still contend is not.
Right. Exactly.
I've covered this sport too long. I know plenty of orthopedic surgeons. I've covered Achilles tears. No one has ever said anyone's coming back in the middle of the same season.
That's right.
Nobody.
Right, exactly.
And I love that they're trolling him on it. Oh, you don't believe in medicine, but all of a sudden these doctors are giving you whatever medications you need and doing these procedures and helping you do something no one's ever done before. How could that be true?
Right.
Aaron?
Mm-hmm. No, totally. It's definitely, the troll job is amazing because Aaron has asked for it, essentially.
Le Batard hasn't done one of these in a while. He used to be amazing
That's
at
right.
it.
Right.
Like
exactly.
the troll job part.
Yeah. Right.
And I actually think it was accidental. It was one of his co-hosts who just kind of said it, and they laughed, ha, 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 and then it's gathered steam, and now everybody's talking about it. I wonder if Aaron Rodgers made up the extent of his injury because it's not possible for him to come back, or at least as far as we know, it's not possible. And of all people who doesn't believe in modern medicine, it's that guy. So why would he trust the pharmaceutical companies and the surgeons and the doctors to fix this?
Right.
Or maybe he's not. Maybe he went to Mars and he met Blue of Earth and some other sentient being, and they fixed it for him and sent him back.
That was a funny thing. We didn't know where he went. He was on McAfee, but he could have gone on another darkness retreat.
Could have been anywhere.
With ayahuasca or whatever he needed to do.
That's right. Could be.
Or whatever his miracle drug is in the middle of the rainforest is.
Could be, guys. Could be. Other quarterback news. I sent you the Matt Eberflus thing, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Have you heard this yet?
I haven't.
This is top-notch nonsense. And it's amazing top-notch nonsense. I beg you to listen closely to this when he is asked about whether Justin Fields could play tonight. This happened yesterday. Could play tonight because they're the Thursday night game. And he's not going to play, right? He's out because of, I don't remember the injury.
The undrafted quarterback again.
Yeah, I don't remember the injury he has, but like he's got a real injury. They're not holding him out. Like he's got a real injury and he can't go. And this is top-notch, top level. I don't know what you're talking about. Listen closely as he consistently contradicts himself about Justin Fields' availability for tonight's game.
Like I said, he's not medically cleared to go right now, and he's getting better though. I mean, he's accuracy's improving. He's throwing it better, and he's starting to do more and more and more. So we'll see where it goes. And right now we're listing him as doubtful, and we'll see where it goes from there.
If he's not medically cleared, well, how come doubtful versus out?
Yeah, just to see. We got to give him one more day. But he's working hard, and it's getting better every day. So we'll see where it goes.
He's not playing tomorrow.
Yeah, he's not playing.
What have the medical staff seen clearance yet? What are they telling you?
What's that?
What is the medical staff telling you in terms of why they haven't given him the clearance?
Yeah, it's really just the clearance is just, obviously he's got to be cleared to play within the medical staff, and so it's really about him feeling good about it and the medical staff saying that he can go in there and function. And he's just not there at this time.
Is it an issue of grip strength or?
It's everything. It's all improving. The grip strength, the accuracy, the ability to function as a quarterback.
Oh, wow!
It's all right there. It's getting close.
I'm having trouble understanding.
So am I.
He's not playing, but he's doubtful. Is he out or doubtful?
Now he's listed as doubtful.
But you're saying that he's out. He's not.
Jesus.
We'll see where it goes. The chances are doubtful, 51% that he's in or out, and that's going to be.
Or out.
We'll see where it is.
It's 51% in or out.
That's 50-50
We'll clear him
actually.
out when he's out. Right now, we're still listing him as doubtful.
But will he go through any sort of pregame work?
Yeah.
He may. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Is that unbelievable? He's doubtful, but he's not medically cleared to play. That's right, he's not. We're going to give it one more day. But he's not playing tomorrow, right? Yeah, he's out. So why is he doubtful? Well, he can't function. And it's 51% he's in or out. What's 49% then? What's 49%?
Had he just said 50-50, that would have solved that. But
he's 51% in or out.
I hope
That's a T-shirt, please.
No, I was saying, I hope one day somebody describes my job as he's not able to function.
He's not able to function. He goes, it's grip strength, it's everything.
He said accuracy, too.
It's accuracy.
He said accuracy.
It's everything. He's not able to function. Well, then how's he playing? Well, he's not. But you listed him as doubtful. That's right.
Just because the Bears have been that terrible, I got to think Motram's got a
it's amazing.
unable to function.
Unable to function. Or 51% in or out.
Yeah.
That's up there with I don't know how the sausage is made. That is up 51% I'm in or out. 51%. That's perfect.
This is
perfect.
And this is year one with Eberflus,
No,
right?
2.
No, this is year 2? Okay.
This is year
right,
2.
Well, he's gone then.
So last year was this is why I was like, I think he might be available because after the first year and it didn't go really well and they had the number 1 pick, I'm like, well, they didn't pick him, the GM or the coach.
That's right.
Like he fell into the Haskins situation. He got picked by a different group of people.
That's right.
They changed them after his rookie year. The new people inherited him. They went through a year with him. They ended up with the number 1 pick, and that's why the whole time last offseason, I'm like, go get that guy, go get that guy.
Yeah.
He's going to be available. And then they didn't do it and traded out of the pick, which actually looks smart now.
Sure. Yeah,
Unless they took Stroud.
Which they would have. So...
Well, I don't know.
Oh, no, sorry.
They could have taken Bryce Young.
Could
you imagine that?
Young, probably.
Could you imagine if they took Bryce Young and it was worse than what Justin Fields has been?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I meant originally.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
They are.
That's a head coach.
They've got an interesting way of going about things over there.
That's a head coach, though, that is, you and I have seen this a million times before, that is just losing his mind, and we know what's next.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You don't really recover from things like that.
I will ask an important question here. How are we down 27-3 to them?
It's the most frustrating loss in years.
I agree.
Years.
It was the one, you know me, I think I have a good beat on things. That was the one that shook me like I've never been shook, almost to the point where I went, I don't know anything anymore.
That's right.
Like, how in the world did we lose at home to them? Why are they on Thursday night again? This is happening again.
This is true.
Who thought they were going to be really good this year?
Yeah, I don't
Al
know.
must be going crazy.
Al's not happy.
No. Al, by the way, is not retiring. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
He said, I'm not retiring. I'm doing next year. And he
Was
said,
there
I'm
any
not.
doubt that he was? Were people saying
I think
that?
people are wondering, do you hate this so much?
Dude, Al is going to do that
anywhere.
until he absolutely can't do it anymore.
Correct.
Like
He's also like, he's still top level good at it.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, he is getting junk games.
Sure.
And that's what it is.
Junk game, and he had the moment last year where he totally downplayed the amazing comeback the Jags had.
The season wore on him that he was not excited about what ended up being the best playoff game of the winter.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And he just completely downplayed the
The
comeback.
best game the Jaguars have ever played in playoff history. The biggest
I don't know,
comeback in
close
playoff
enough.
history. Name one better than that. How could they have done anything better than that?
They had that one game where David Garrard beat the Steelers. I mean, that was pretty good. That's badass. He had like a 50-yard touchdown run or something. Like, that was I'm just saying. I don't know enough about the Jags, but yes, it was very, very big game, and he downplayed the whole entire thing.
Yeah, he was like, like they were down, what, 27-0?
He did the old, there's a flag on the play. Hold on. And it was like, no, it was an offsides on the Chargers. Like, it was not going to be anything.
Like, well, I guess they won. Okay. I'll see you guys next week. Oh, we don't have one of those games. All right, see you next year, guys.
see you at Arrowhead.
Other quarterback news. Kyler Murray's going to play this week.
Yep.
So, I'm going back and forth on this. I don't know what to do if I'm them, because they are 1-8. So there's not much he's going to be able to do, even if he's good, to get them to the playoffs.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
But and then secondarily, knowing who the quarterbacks are in this draft, he might be too good to lose enough.
Right.
So I don't know what I would do if I were them. Do you put him on IR and shelve him even though he's ready to go? I guess not. And do you actually play him and end up winning 3 of your final 8 games and end up having the 4th or 5th overall pick and not the number 1 or 2, even because you could go full Bears here if you had the number 1 pick and go, we'll either take Caleb Williams or we will accept your bids for that.
Win-win scenario here.
I can't decide if it is or not. You think?
It's win-win because
he proves it to you? Or if they go bad, then you know?
Well, no. If you go bad, you'll be in a position to draft another one.
And you'll have the reason to do it.
Correct.
Okay.
And if he's good, you can then make your call. You either roll forward with him or you trade him. If he shows he's legit, somebody will trade for him.
But if he's really good with the new coach, they might go Bears here and go, we're trading away our top pick because we're going to stick with him.
Maybe. But I'm just saying they're going to have options if he's good. Like somebody will roll the dice on him.
If he's bad, it has to be bad enough that they maintain the draft position. Otherwise, they lose the leverage of having the draft position.
Sure.
That's where the loss could happen here. If they're just a little too good with him, but it's not great with him where you wouldn't necessarily want to move on, you may play yourself out of Caleb Williams or Drake May.
Right.
Maybe.
Sure.
If you don't play him and you stick with Clayton Tune, you're almost not guaranteed. Nothing's a guarantee, but you will not have a good record. You will have a really bad one, and it will just depend on how bad it is comparatively to some of these other teams. And then you're in the pole position of, do we bring Kyler back and take the highest bid for Caleb Williams, or do we take Caleb Williams and take the highest bid for Kyler Murray? They'll be in the Bears position. So the loss is if they go, let's just say they win 4 of their final 8 and they go 5 and whatever, and they don't make the playoffs, and now they're picking 7th.
Right.
That's not good.
True.
That's not good. Well, maybe not even 5th. It's not good because you don't have the leverage of one of those quarterbacks that are going to go 1-2.
Right.
I don't know what to do.
They also, you got to remember.
I don't know. Listen, I shouldn't advocate for tanking, but in their case, with him off this injury and at 1-8, putting him back in now, I don't know that I buy that as the right thing to do at this point. I'd say the same thing to the Vikings. Well, they're 5-4.
You're also forgetting though, they have ammo if they do want to move up and get a quarterback. They have the Texans first round pick. They have the 15th overall pick right now.
Right.
So that'll get you up.
So they've got the ammo to do it either way if they wanted to move up.
Correct.
But they also could just land on it on their own and not have to bid out for it.
For sure.
And give up any extra assets.
Correct. But I think you play it out here because if Kyler looks legit, then you've got your quarterback already and you've already paid him. So it's not like
this is a tough one. I thought this was a tough decision. I mean, you put him in now. What are the chances they lose out with him at quarterback? I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think you know what you have, though. Also, really important news on this front.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, the new Call of Duty comes out.
Oh. So that's a loss this weekend. So you're saying they should have waited a week? Wait a week?
Well, no, because then he's just playing the whole entire time.
When's it come out?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah. So midnight tonight.
Well, then you should have waited a week. Let him get it out of his system
you're wrong.
for 6 days.
You're wrong, because now he got to play the entire week without playing the video game. So you at least got a week of focused practice.
Does he show up to the team meetings on Saturday, or is he too busy?
No, I think he shows up. He might have his Xbox or his PlayStation with him.
This is going to be like, what do they think is going to happen? They're going to win their last 8 games? I mean, is that what they think is going to happen if they bring him back?
I think honestly, like you're like you're on the outsider perspective. I think if you go to them and go from the local perspective, you need to make sure Kyler looks right, just so you know what to do next. Because if you want to move on from him, that's fine. But nobody's trading for him if you don't play him for the rest of the year. Nobody. Nobody's going to trade for that contract unless you're saying we'll eat all of the money. That's not going to happen. So I think you have to play him regardless, no matter what you want to do, whether you want to move forward with him or not, or if you want to move on from him. If he looks good enough, somebody will trade for him, or somebody might trade for him if he doesn't look amazing, if you're willing to eat the contract, or they can get him for a mid-round pick or something like that.
Well, the trade of him works out for anybody because no matter what, they can't move the dead money over, which is the signing bonus. They have to eat that no matter what.
Exactly.
So you end up getting him on salaries that end up being relatively beneficial because you don't owe him all this stuff. And I don't know how much of it is guaranteed, but probably a portion of it is not. It's not the Deshaun deal. So you'd be buying a couple of years, and there will always be a team that needs a quarterback very badly that will look into that for sure.
Yeah, right.
And give him the second chance. The other stuff that's getting a little bit of momentum that I don't think will play out this way, but C.J. Stroud's rookie season is like unprecedented. The numbers he's putting up.
Yeah.
And so there are people calling him MVP, which for a rookie would be, I think, a little off the charts. But who's the quarterback who's the MVP right now? See, this is a weird year. Is it Tua? Well, they haven't beaten a good team yet.
That's right.
So even though he has gaudy stats.
And if you're going to pick someone, you'd pick Tyreek probably.
Tyreek off that team. I've been advocating A.J. Brown through the first half of the season has had such a ridiculous impact on the Eagles that I think you have to seriously consider him as the MVP this year. But the quarterbacks are always the ones that typically end up there. Well, Burrow had a really slow start, and they're only 5-3 or whatever it is.
Right.
Herbert's not going to get it. Dak's not going to get it. Hurts right now wouldn't get it. I'd have given it to A.J. Brown. Allen's not going to get it. Mahomes, I suppose,
Mahomes could play himself into it. I mean, this has happened before.
Could. I don't think there's clear-cut people this year. So normally I would dismiss this. And also, with half a season to go and he's a rookie, things could go the wrong way. But him being put out there as a potential MVP, if they end up making the playoffs and he has top 5 passer numbers, I think there's going to be a momentum of, I'm not sure. And he might.
I think you have to factor it in.
He might have to throw for 5,000 yards this year.
I think you have to factor it in because they only had 2 wins last year, and it's not like they overhauled their roster. They just drafted. They drafted well, by the way.
They drafted him and Will Anderson.
Right, and it's worked, right?
And they may end up with the 2 rookies of the year.
Right. So
he's going to be the offensive rookie of the year. That's not even a question at this point.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But what I would say is I think you need to factor in how the roster is built, and he has elevated everyone on that roster. So I think there's a valid argument to that one.
I think for now.
Literally valuable player, he might be it. So
maybe.